Okay, can we please move on to item B, conduct of business, please, City Clerk.
Item 6B, receive first quarter financial update report for fiscal year 2020-21 as of September 30th, 2020, and adopt a resolution approving the carryover of fiscal year 2019-20 purchase order encumbrances and budget amendments.
Okay, we're gonna first turn this over to the city manager. Then I understand Ms. Steele will be available and be being part of the presentation. I'm sure the city manager has been looking forward to this. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. Good evening, Council. Javon Grogan, City Manager, and I sit here today both as the City Manager and as your Acting Finance Director since the end of September. And you're correct, we do have a contractor, a gentleman by the name of Jim Steele, who has been supporting the department, performing analysis as well as special project management since the departure of our Finance Director. Happy to report that recruitment process has ended, and we have a healthy candidate pool, and moving forthrightly moving forward with that. You do have me tonight, given the late hour. The staff and the consultant are not with us, but hopefully I will be able to answer all of your questions. So with that, why don't we launch into the presentation? We are here this evening to talk about our Q1 update. As a reminder for the council and the public, quarter one includes July, August, and September, both revenues and expenditures. Typically, a Q1 report is fairly straightforward and not as detailed as the one that you had before you, but given that everything is unusual about 2020, we went in greater detail both in this presentation and in the staff report, and the goal is just to give you an update on Q1 and then adopt a resolution amending the operating and capital budgets as well as carryovers for purchased encumbrances and budget adjustments, and we will talk about each of those. Our agenda, we will talk about the general fund, our enterprise funds, which is typically our utility funds, and internal service funds, those funds that are established to serve other funds within the city and support our internal, largely administrative and maintenance operations specifically for the city. We will talk about carryover and additional budget amendments, and then have a discussion and request action from the council. As the city council knows, and as was mentioned in one of the first public comments to this meeting, we had a challenging budget year developing this budget. So our general fund is just under $50 million. This shows a budgetary shortfall of $591,000 that was made up from use of fund balance, essentially additional money out of the checking account to arrive at a balanced budget. I will also say that it is right that we had a $8.2 million projected deficit when we begun this 2021 budget process, and we closed that, and that $8.2 million deficit was largely attributed to $4 million as direct impacts from COVID-19 revenue losses, and then another $4 million related to revenues over regular expenditures. The next table that is fairly detailed shows our major general fund revenue sources through the first quarter and provides a comparison of this year to last year. Top line summary, we have 15% of general fund revenues received this year as opposed to the same time period last year. We had 14%. So overall, we are on track. We are, for our major revenue sources, just about even with what we recovered in property tax. While 3 months has passed, as a reminder, we do not get the first distribution of property tax payments until after Q1. And so for most of us in the county that have not already paid, I believe those bills are coming due very, very soon. Sales tax, we have recovered slightly more as a percentage basis this fiscal year compared to last fiscal year, but the number is slightly less. So 669,000 last year at this time, 628,000. More percentage-wise of the budget, because the council will remember that we significantly reduced our sales tax budget in this budget year. Hotel occupancy tax is the less than bright spot in this presentation because we are currently at about 8% recovered, whereas last year we had 18% of the budgeted amount recovered. And so we are currently down just on a quarter-by-quarter basis, approximately $350,000 based on the budget. And so we will continue to monitor TOT and return to the City Council with additional information at mid-year. We all know that this is a direct impact due to the prolonged impact of COVID-19 and the cycle that we're currently in, where we have rolled back on the reopening of the economy. Motor vehicle license fees, those revenues do not come in yet. We are on track with our card room tax. We are a little bit above where we were last year and percentage-wise and budget-wise on business tax. And so that will help out with underages potentially on TOT, as well as the little bit that we're over on the sales tax percent. And for the most part, we are on track to make our revenue budget paying close attention to TOT, as mentioned before. General fund expenditures, we are on track to meet our expenditure target, and I will not go through these in detail. The information is in the report, but we are more or less in alignment with where we should be and how expenditures were projected to occur throughout the first quarter of the fiscal year. The same general trend is true when we look at our enterprise funds. And so that is both our water fund, wastewater, cable television, CityNet, and stormwater. We will come back to CityNet later in this presentation because we are projected to be down in CityNet due to an increase in delinquencies due to non-payment as we believe related to COVID-19, as well as the same thing is true for water and wastewater. So top line takeaways for the general fund, our TOT is coming in lower than budgeted. Receipts are currently down 72% from last year for the first quarter. Budget based only on a 40% decline. We will continue to monitor this and continue our outreach to our hoteliers. We did see a spike in occupancy in our hotel rooms in the second quarter of this fiscal year, largely related to the wildfires and people from within San Mateo and Santa Cruz counties being relocated due to the evacuations due to wildfires. And so we'll have more information at Q2 to see how we're trending, as well as we'll know more about COVID-19. Sales tax, we are projecting to come in at budget. This is our regular Bradley Burns 1% of the statewide sales tax. With regard to our Measure G half-cent district sales tax, there's currently not sufficient data in the first 3 months of the year to make any solid determination on where we are with that revenue. But we have been in close contact with HCL, our sales tax consultant, and the projections still show us coming in on budget. Property tax, as was shown in the prior slide, is a sort of moderate increase from where we project it to be on budget. Again, we have not received the largest payment of our property tax, which is that first payment that is due near the end of this calendar year. But we're up a little bit, again, that could potentially offset where we are down in TOT. Good news is that building plan check revenue is up higher than estimated, largely due to YouTube projects moving forward. Council and the public will remember there was a phase 1 of the 902 Cherry project that is underway with excavation and a DA the second reading of which was approved tonight. Vehicle and lieu fees, the city council may remember that we had a significant revenue loss last year. The county has sent out a circular to all jurisdictions alerting of a potential loss this year of potentially $530,000 from our budget. We're continuing to monitor this as well as participating with other cities in advocacy at the state level to hopefully have the state backfill a number of, or if not all, a significant portion of this revenue. And that effort is being led by a number of city managers throughout the county. Recreation revenues are expected to, of course, decline due to the prolonged impacts of COVID-19. There is also a somewhat of an offsetting drop in expenditures because if we're not running the programs, we're not incurring the cost. As mentioned before, CityNet and utility account delinquencies are down. For CityNet, in the first 3 months, we are down approximately $475,000, and the total for water and wastewater is roughly the same at a total of $460,000 for both of those utilities. We are continuing to monitor this as well as for CityNet. We have sent a notice for the November bills where we will no longer maintain customers at the account that they subscribe to if they are not paying their bill. They will be dropped to the lowest internet and basic TV service. That way we are not incurring additional retransmission fees for the content that they are not unfortunately able to pay for. We are also offering an extension of our normal 6-month payment plans up to 12 months because we want to be compassionate and recognize the impact that COVID-19 has had on members of our community. And so we've sent letters to both utility and CityNet account subscribers, and we'll be engaging in payment plan discussions. So hopefully we are not forced to write off that full amount, and it will be payable over time as we do our normal course of business. Workers' compensation claims have exceeded our budget, and we are reviewing that, and the city council is aware that as a city manager, I've committed to a review of our workers' comp process. And top line summary, everything else is normal and as expected for the first 3 months of the fiscal year. As well as we are carrying over just under $14 million of expenditures. This occurs every year. These are already budgeted expenditures in both the operating and the capital budget, where the contract was signed or the purchase order was issued, but the work has not been done or the final invoice has not come in by the time we reach June 30 in the prior 19-20 fiscal year. So every year at this time, we calculate all of our POs, purchase orders that have been encumbered, and we ask council essentially for a continuing resolution to continue the appropriation of those funds through an action that we call carryover. Next at Q1, we are recommending a number of budgetary adjustments for the council to consider and act on tonight. I will go through these in some level of detail, but there is significant detail provided on pages 8 through 11 of the staff report in paragraph form. So at a high level, we are recommending staffing augmentation of a permanent analyst 2 in the Community and Economic Development Department that would specifically provide assistance with our building and planning divisions. That permanent position will support project management for a number of ongoing and routine efforts. Code updates is one of them, helping to update our housing element, our zoning code, work on our affordable housing program, as well as looking at our compatibility plan with the airport land use guidelines, also helping out with implementation and administration of the short-term rental program, as well as various analytical tasks that are currently done by either the department head, management staff, or our planners, all of which have a workload that can be more efficient if this analytical work was done by a analyst two. That includes tracking and managing developer reimbursement accounts, budget preparation and tracking, as well as grant management. And so the requested appropriation is $50,000 in the current 2021 fiscal year. The fully loaded cost of that position on an annual go-forward basis is $145,000 annually, salary and benefits. The 50 represents approximately 4 months. There will be a time required to hire, recruit, and select that position. And so we're only asking for an appropriation this fiscal year of the 50, but the full amount will be incorporated into future budgets. $75,000 request to fund the Safe and Equitable Policing Review. It is a review of our policing policies and practices initiated by the city after the nationwide concerns surrounding George Floyd's death, as well as local calls for us to examine how we police here in the city of San Bruno. It's worth mentioning that our police department budget is $19 million, and $75,000 represents less than 1% of that budget. So a recommendation that staff feels is very much appropriate. And this project is structured as a phase 1 and a phase 2. Phase 1 is currently underway with an internal review by the police department of their policies, practices, hiring, regulations, as well as training of officers. Phase 2 is an independent review that will be done by an outside party that has robust community engagement as described in the report. And again, $75,000 coming from the Equitable Sharing Fund. That is asset forfeiture, so it is not coming from general tax revenue, that is coming from funds that were acquired due to seizures. Downtown parking meter program. This is actually a credit back to the general fund in the amount, or the general fund capital project in the amount of $150,000. And so it's a credit back to the general fund and charging a settlement, Centrium settlement funds that we were able to utilize for this project. And I know the council may be wondering, what is that settlement? Well, it dates back to 2009. It actually was a negotiated settlement to the city, paid for traffic impacts related to a project that's in South San Francisco. That project is actually the FedEx distribution facility on San Mateo Avenue that is right on our border. And so that settlement was for $331,000. And so with this $150,000 allocation, we're able to return general fund capital money back to that fund for use on other general fund projects. And that will leave $181,000 still in that settlement fund account that we can use for allocation for other projects at a later date. But we did want to adjust the budget to reflect that and save the general fund money. Next is a recommended appropriation of $187,000 to replace our city phone system that is end of life and that the vendor will no longer support. And so that was a unfunded project, and we were able to utilize other funds in our cybersecurity project. And so we're recommending to pull money out of the cybersecurity project and to fund the replacement of the city phone system. We have received a State Highway Safety Improvement Program grant for local roadway safety plan in the amount of $72,000, and so that appropriation is requested. With that grant, there is a 10% match, and so that match is $23,000 based on the total grant amount, and we are asking that come from the pedestrian safety and calming program with sufficient funds. Next are two allocations for projects at the senior center, $145,000 for replacing the senior center trash enclosure, and $300,000 for senior center parking lot improvements to include repaving, reducing or eliminating our tripping hazards, and reconfiguration of a number of the parking spaces there, namely ADA lots, and creating a little bit more width in those spaces. Both of these projects, totaling $445,000, are recommended to come from the bequest funds that are donated for the benefit of the city senior center by individuals in our community that bequest funds typically in their will to the senior center. And so that has been taken to the Senior Advisory Committee and is before you tonight. The next project is $100,000 for a water tank, and that is the Sweeney Ridge tank replacement for design, cost, and overhead that is projected to come out of the water fund that has sufficient funds. That was not included in the original budget, but we would like to continue to proceed forward with our water enhancements. Next is $20,000 for increased cost of replacing a water division truck. And lastly is $20,000 that is projected to come from the general fund for two items. One is a CityNet financial review to review revenues, and the other is what I call a mini org review of the finance department. So our new finance director, whenever he or she is hired, will have an independent review conducted, and we'll walk in the door with an implementation action plan for that department, a best practice recommendation. And so total adjustments on each fund is listed: $70,000 for the general fund, that's $50,000 for the position, $25,000 for that finance and city debt services review. Probably worth mentioning that the $20,000 will be, like all of our city net expenditures, written as a due to the general fund, so it can eventually be paid back. Equitable sharing, $75,000. The in and out of the $150,000 for the downtown parking meter program. Measure A gas tax of $23,000, and the bequest funds for the senior center, as well as a total of $120,000 from the water fund. And so our request to the city council is both to receive the report that I have given and then adopt a resolution amending the operating and capital recommendations, as well as the carryover encumbrances and budget amendments that have been put before you. And with that, I will say thank you and take questions.
Take the screen down. Questions from colleagues. First, we'll start off with Councilmember Medina.
Yes, thank you, City Manager Grogan. A couple questions. Do you have an explanation why, or can you give us a little more information on the increase in business taxes? Is that just kind of what's up with that?
So I do not have a detailed explanation in where those funds are coming from at the moment, but it is additional business tax revenue over budget. I do know that we, if I pull that up, I know that when we were developing the budget, we were in the shelter in place, and we had a number of conversations about potentially lowering that amount, and there was a slight reduction in the budget from last year. And so at this point, I'm just not able to say if it's sort of a reduced budget projection and that we were anticipated lower payments due to COVID-19, or in fact, we did have higher payments.
Okay, thank you. So I noticed that the revenue in our enterprise in water went up, but in sewer, it's going down. I was wondering how that could be explained. And it's not really important. I'm just curious that how is that possible? But
so I'll have to get back to the city council with an explanation on that, unless our director Jimmy Tan knows the answer. He is welcome to come into the room.
Apologize, I don't have the answer for it as well.
Okay. Is the workers' comp increases due to COVID or something else?
I would not say that they're due to COVID-19. This is the first 3 months of the fiscal year. It is normal increases in our workers' comp and in claims, but not due to COVID-19.
Okay, and my last question is, do you feel that do you need flexibility to bring on additional staff in community development? Are you okay where we're staffed right now? Because we've heard loud and clear that we need more staff, and is this going to be enough, or do you need more? I'm just kind of, I'd rather provide you the flexibility now, if that's your interest.
Sure. So staffing in our community and economic development department has been a challenge for quite some time. As the council may remember, I believe it's two budget cycles ago, we came to the city council with a request for 2 additional limited term positions. And then we did not request those again this last fiscal year because we had a $8.2 million shortfall, and we're looking at significant employee reductions. But the staffing in our community and economic development department is lower than what ideally we would need for the workload that we're experiencing. We have done a number we've taken a number of steps. One is we have increased our use of consultants, both for the policy analysis update projects that we're doing and to manage projects that are coming in the door. An example of which is a conversation we had today with the Ingwall development that is owned by the San Bruno Park School District. The developer reached out and they would like to move forward. And so we will be bringing on a contract planner because we currently do not have capacity on staff for that. And so we are flexing our staff with contractors, but do we need additional permanent staff in the long run, potentially? Absolutely. What we know we're recommending right now is an analyst 2. The city council approved budget for a organizational review of that department to be conducted, which is currently underway. And so that study may come back with additional staffing recommendations. The other position that we have long talked about that I believe we all would love in that department is a economic development manager, someone who is solely dedicated every day to supporting our businesses, both those that are here and those we want to attract. That is a management position that we have been unable to fund the additional resources for. That is not requested right now because we take requesting additional permanent bodies very strongly. We really need to know where we will be with COVID-19, what our budget will look like. We will begin in February of 2021, launching our full-scale budget analysis for the upcoming 21-22 fiscal year that will begin in July. So this is the position that we know we would like to immediately begin recruiting. We do have the flexibility to continue to supplement our staff with contractors as long as we can find them, because a lot of the projects that are coming in the door are paid for 100% by the applicant and developers. And so I do not need additional budgetary authorization from council because I have continuing authorization when we have projects that are reimbursed. With all that said, analyst 2 requested now, put other staff potentially later.
Thank you.
City manager, on the business license that was brought up, could any of that increase be seen due to the audit that was done, and as far as readjusting and or one-time payments?
You know, potentially. I don't want to speculate now. I know a lot of the additional revenue was due to come from our hotel operators that have had reduced revenue this year, and so we'll look into that and provide the city council with an answer. Mr. Mayor, if I will, I did take a quick look at the sewer revenue that is down. What I'll point out is that it's not down overall. It's really just down a little bit this quarter, and the budget was adjusted down. And so I think we need to wait a little bit more. It could just have something to do with payments and sewer accounts or projects going offline. It's not down by much.
Okay, and then real quick in fire, when it came to our expenditures, they're up 4%. But what I'm wondering too is it balanced out, because obviously they go out on a strike, on the strike teams, and then we get reimbursed at a later time from the state. So is that matched up here? So if it's up there, is also the revenue for being paid back for their time?
Absolutely. Some of the expenditures in our finance department during this 3-month period are due to strike team deployments, and we will be reimbursed for those costs. What I'll actually say is, being the percent difference, 36 to 32, it's really just sort of order of magnitude. And as far as this 3-month portrait, being 4% off plus or minus is really in the ballpark of where we should be overall.
No, correct. I just think it's important for folks to know too that there is that expenditure additionally, and then it comes back. Councilmember Mason.
Yeah, thank you for the report. I just wanted to know, I believe we were told that you'd come back in the first quarter and let us know about the remaining funds for Measure K and whether they could be applied for the streets, as we had discussed a couple of months ago.
You say Measure K?
The Measure K.
Measure K.
I'm sorry, Measure G. I'm sorry,
oh,
Measure G. Yeah, Measure G. And then I don't know if I can ask them all, but my other question, also just an outstanding, is the $3 million emergency funds that were approved by the council for COVID. We were told we'd get an update also on how much is remaining in that account.
So we'll provide that in a off agenda memo to the city council to give you an update on where we stand there.
Thank you. Just wanted to say that I do support the analyst position. I know that's been needed. I think for the public who may not have been present at the meeting that the council had with directors earlier this year, it was clear from a number of directors that an analyst was needed. The other position, in addition to what Mr. Medina stated, that I just want to make sure if we can't afford it, we might be able to get one, is another park maintenance. With COVID, it just seems like our parks are filled up, and I just want to make sure that they're also safe. We've got a lot of trees, so if we do need additional maintenance of our parks, if that's something that's being looked at. Thank you.
Other questions or comments from colleagues?
To the chair.
Vice Mayor Salazar.
I just wanted to thank the city manager for doing double duty. I did a pretty good job on putting this together. It was a pretty comprehensive presentation, and also wanted to thank him and his staff for keeping us on track. The numbers are looking pretty good considering the brutal beating that we took getting to this point through last year. So things are starting to look at least stable at this point. So I think that's good news all around. I definitely have concerns about adding a position at this point because things are still a little dicey. But I also agree that this is a position that's pretty critical to our operations. And, I'm nervous about going forward with, the assumptions. We made some bad assumptions last time that got us into a lot of trouble in terms of what kind of revenue was going to come in. I'm really hoping that adding this position will in some way help us to make sure that some of those revenues that we're expecting from that department actually materialize and not leave us high and dry again. That was a pretty significant hit we took because we weren't able to keep up, and some of those revenues that we expected didn't come in. So for that reason, I'm willing to go out on a limb here and potentially push us into what looks like could be a structural deficit if any of those things don't happen the way we're expecting. So I'll take a leap of faith and get on board with these requests. I think the other ones are all pretty modest and definitely necessary adjustments to the budget. So I'm in favor of moving forward with those as well.
Any other questions or comments from council? Councilmember Davis.
Mayor Medina, yeah, I mean, I would concur with Michael's, Councilmember Salazar's comments. I mean, Q1 stats are kind of like a peak, you know, and it's not really, it's really not a clear picture, so I think it's kind of tough to make that decision. But I think I support this as well. It's, you know, there's always the fear of going forward, and I think we never want to over-anticipate that those revenues will be in, but I have to agree this tax recommendation. And thank you, City Manager Yvonne Grogan. Thank you for your double dipping. It's a lot to put on the city manager as well, so we really do appreciate it.
Okay, Councilmember Mason, do you have something?
Just a question, I guess a procedural question. So by approving this report without the emergent, what exactly, I guess, are we approving? I just want to know
we would be adopting a resolution amending 2021 operating and capital improvement budget by approving the carryovers of the 1920 purchase order incumbents and a budget amendments which do require an action. And this will come up to us each quarter that we get this report and see if we're prepared to take staff's recommendation on the amendments and moving funds potentially.
So then the Measure G and the emergency funds would just remain with authorization that the city manager currently has. There would be no changes there as of right now. Is that correct?
As of right now, my understanding is that is correct. City manager, you can verify for me?
Mayor, I think said a different way, the only changes to the adopted budget that you would be approving are those expressly spelled out in the resolution. We did say, I did say that we would bring you an update on where we are with the emergency funds, and that is not in here, and that is an oversight. So we will be sure to get that information out to council in an off agenda memo ASAP. But know that the EOC continues to be activated. We continue to undertake the necessary expenditures to respond to COVID-19, and we'll get you an update ASAP.
Understood. Thank you.
Okay. And again, I know you stated there was not enough significant data on the Measure G, and I know it's still, are we going to go purple or are we not? And so I know we probably have to give a little more time to see that we need to with it coming through. Anything else, City Manager, on your end before I ask for council action? I heard silence, so I'm going to assume no. Is there any action from council in regards to item B, and it's a resolution?
I will make a motion to adopt the resolution amending the budget as spelled out.
Second.
Motion and second for the resolution. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Davis?
Aye.
Councilmember Mason?
Aye.
Councilmember Medina?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Salazar?
Aye.
Mayor Medina?
Aye.